Welcome to Candid Conversations with Dr. Kelly, where we dive deep into the conversations that matter most to your mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Dr. Kelly Utenham, a passionate advocate for brain health and wellness. And here on this podcast, we explore candid conversations about life, health, and the stories that shape us. Whether it's about mental health, sports, or simply navigating everyday challenges, we keep it real, raw, and relevant. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Welcome to another episode of Candid Conversations with Dr. Kelly. I am always excited for my guests, but I am super duper excited for this particular guest because we have my line sister, a mental health professional, and just all around that girl, Shalandra Moore Quarles. Welcome, Shalandra.
Hi, I'm glad to finally be here. We've been trying to do this for some time now. And so here we are. We made it to quarter 4 and I'm on the schedule. So I'm excited to be here. Again, Shalandra Moore Quarles. I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor, a national certified counselor, super mom. I wear a lot of hats. And so I guess we're going to talk a little bit more about that as you and I continue our conversation.
Absolutely. So she gave
Super
you all
excited to
just
be
a
here.
Well, I'm so glad to have you here as well. But she is correct. So we've been trying to get this together, but that is the challenge of two very busy and albeit successful women, Black women,
I am
in this
not
world.
proud.
Yes, very proud. And for those of you who follow me on Instagram, Shalandra is the line sister that I intentionally spend time with at least once a month for our dinners.
Mhm.
And so that is part of our mental health. We pour into each other, love on each other. So that is, this is the Shalandra who is on my socials. So we are going to dive in to your work, to you being super mom. And listeners, when she says super mom, she means it, okay? The way that she wears all these hats and juggles everything. And my nephew, her son, he is such a well balanced individual, not just an athlete, but a human. And I always commend her for how well she has done with him. But we'll get to talk about all of that because now I'm proud to say that my nephew, her son, he is now a football player at Elon University. And so we are rooting for them. But Shalandra, can we get into the very beginning while we are both from Cleveland? How did you get into the mental health space?
So I took a elective psychology class in undergrad. When I got to undergrad, I was doing an engineering program. I went to a high school in Cleveland that had a focus on engineering. I mean, I did all the STEM stuff. It wasn't STEM back then, but I was into all of that, all the science fairs. But when I took the elective, I really connected to the class and the instructor. I think the instructor plays a really big part in my decision also. But I was really intrigued by, all the parts of the brain, how our thoughts determine so many different things in our lives, our actions, our behaviors. And so once I took that class, I was sold. I changed my major and I have been working in the field ever since.
Wow. So I know
I don't even
that
know if you know that story or
I
not.
don't know that story.
Yeah,
Engineering, so you were nerding out before I even
I
met
was
you?
nerding out. I think I got like third place in a science fair senior year. Back then we were making all the robots, and so my team, we got third place. But I
Wow.
was heavily into like, I was gonna be an engineer and build something or create something in that space. Because at that time I was just really into STEM, and we didn't have like that big technology boost then, and so um, it was more simplified for us. But it was very intriguing for me. In the school I went to, East Technical High School, for my senior year, we had a lot of programs that were related to that. So that was my thing. But again, I took that psychology class, and I was just so intrigued, and it was so deep and spiritual for me. So I changed my major.
Wow, that is powerful. And listeners, I didn't even mention this part. Shalandra is also a phenomenal basketball player. She played in college, so
Former.
she is a former athlete as well. I mean, I still think she's pretty athletic. She cycles, she works out regularly. I mean, she puts me to
I
shame when
try
it comes to
to.
like a workout schedule, but she was a basketball player. So I definitely want to get into your experience with sports. And did you ever have a concussion or any of your teammates?
So I never had a diagnosed concussion, but ever since you started doing this work and I started doing my work with the NFLPA, of course, it makes you reflect back on your experience as an athlete and some of the things that you dealt with when you were injured. And so I definitely had a couple of moments. I remember high school, even in college, where I was elbowed in my head pretty bad. I saw stars once or twice. I remember, all these things you start to recall when you're in a space where the conversation is open. And back then the conversation wasn't open, right? I don't even remember concussion training or concussion protocols and things like that. You just kind of you take your head, you sit down for a second, and you just keep moving. So, officially diagnosed, no. Did I know someone officially diagnosed with a concussion? Absolutely not. And I definitely saw things that now, as I'm more educated, would resemble concussion related injury. So I'm glad the times are changing and there's more safety and awareness, but I'm old school. We didn't talk about that. If you got injured, you put your foot in the ice bucket, you kept it moving, you just kind of like just dealt with it and you didn't complain about that. And there wasn't like a lot of safety protocols. They really wanted you to get back on the field, back on the court, those type of things. So,
Very true, which they still want now, but luckily, with education and talks like these, it
mhm,
is shifting for the younger athletes, this next generation of athletes. But I mean, as a former athlete, I was a cheerleader and a track runner and field athlete, so I did long jump and triple jump. But I do remember that like the result of the game was much more important than your own personal pain or experience. And I remember that shin splints were just horrible for me. But I remember them
mhm,
taping up my shin so tightly that I didn't have full range. And so
mhm,
instead of me protecting my own body, I took the tape off and just ran through the splints, which was excruciating. But I
mhm,
wanted those
mhm,
numbers and I wanted it for my team. So
mhm,
that's what I mean, listeners, when I say I understand as a former athlete. Shalandra understands as a former athlete. But I want to get into the current athlete in your life, which is
mhm,
Trey.
mhm.
Can you talk about his experience with being an athlete? Were you, as a parent, provided any information on concussion or protocols or risks or anything?
So by the time Trey started to really play like competitive sports, I was more educated, right? Um, I was learning more about brain health. I was making sure that now I have someone that I have to protect, who I have to advocate for. So those kind of things I was very aware of at that time. I will say that my experience with all of his coaches, from the time he started playing like AAU sports up until he graduated high school, we had really proactive coaching staff members who, um, even if they weren't like seasoned in concussion protocol training, we would see them attempting to make sure the kids were okay, right? And even if they weren't like heavily trained in this, in that area, we would see them like making attempts to make sure the kid was okay. We would see them sitting the kids down and or taking them out the game and telling them you're not getting back, you need to kind of rest. And so at least there was the mindset to make sure the kids were safe in that moment and not just get ready for the next play. Once he got to high school, I started to see like the concussion protocols on the field, like on the sideline. My son had a really good trainer at his school here in Charlotte, and so she made sure that the kids went through the protocol then and there. I would see kids like miss the next game, so it lets me know people were taking things seriously. So my experience once he got to high school was a positive experience. Now Trey never had a concussion himself, but several of his close friends and teammates did experience concussions, and I would see, I would say, well, hey, we're such and such, and they say, well, he's still on concussion protocol right now, so he's out this week, and so that made me feel comfortable leaving my child in the hands of these coaches and the staff members to make sure that at least you're not just going to throw him back in the game without making sure evaluating that he's okay. Again, we never experienced that with him, but I did see other players experience that, and I did see an effort to make sure that the kids were that their health was a priority. Also, I think that generationally, like we're more educated than our parents may have been when we were athletes regarding that. We're more protective. And so for me, it doesn't matter about playing in the next game. If your health is a priority, then we're going to focus on that right now.
I love that. I love that the school that Trey goes to, or excuse me, went to, he
Mhm.
graduated. The school that he went to actually cares and will allow the students the time to sit out and heal. And that goes for their physical recovery as well, because Trey had some physical injuries and there was time allotted for that. And I love that there wasn't pressure on him where it was like, hurry up and get back, or, you'll
Mhm.
lose your spot. And I also love we're tying in this mental health component with your
Sure.
expertise that you really were checking in on Trey and making sure that his mental
Yeah.
was okay because that can really affect an athlete when they're not able to play, they're not able to dress out, and then they're kind of on the sidelines. And many athletes that I've interviewed on the podcast have talked about how devastating that is. So, can you
Yes.
talk about how you kind of tapped in with his mental health and made sure he was good?
Yeah, so that's the word I was going to use was devastating. I mean, number one, kind of watching your child deal with the injury and you can't do anything about like the physical recovery except let it take its course and put the things in place for him to recover is really painful for a parent also. So I think in terms of mental health, we're all impacted in the household in different ways when it comes to seeing a child, especially a child like Trey who has so much passion about the things that he does. Be injured. And again, Trey had several injuries throughout his high school career, multiple surgeries. And so immediately after, the first major injury he had, I was like, we got to put him in therapy because I can't imagine him losing a part of his identity in this capacity and having it put on hold because athleticism and being a football player, a basketball player was a big part of his identity. So we wanted to make sure that he still knew that there were things that he was capable of doing off the field, off the court. We wanted to make sure we tapped into his strengths and other skills that he had and other things that he was really good at to make sure he had some kind of support for himself because a lot of the pressure um, comes from the athlete themselves to get back on the field because they think that if I don't, I'm not going to accomplish the goals, or I'm not going to get that scholarship, or the coach is going to forget about me. That starts with the athlete and it can carry over if you don't have a supportive team. So, kind of immediately putting him in therapy, his mom's a therapist, so we were always having the conversations. I would send him like feeling charts weekly to say, what color are we this week so I can kind of know like how much are we struggling? Are you really okay? Are you not okay? What can we do? Once he was able to kind of move around on his own, kind of getting him back in the environment with his teammates so that he had that camaraderie was really important also, and being a part of the conversation. How can we include him in the game, even though he can't play, right? So can we hand him a clipboard and a headset so he can be out there and feel like he's a part of the team and contribute? Because I think the biggest loss is not being able to contribute and feeling um, devastated, but also guilt that you're letting your teammates down also. So we were immediately tackling the mental health side of things for him, but not just for him, for his teammates, because a lot of his teammates had went through injuries as well. So I was doing like group therapy sessions unofficially with the guys, just making sure that, what would you do like if you could never play again? Like, let's have that conversation because football is a really physical sport and it's not a long career for some people. So, who are you off the field? Who are you off the court? And so, kind of really reaffirming that this is not your full identity was something that we really focused on with him a lot.
I love that. Listeners, if you have access to an athletic team or organization at any level of play, from what I'm listening to here with Shalandra, it really makes me think of the benefits of like a group therapy situation with a team. And I think that can spark if a player or an athlete wants to explore individual therapy. I
Mhm.
think it can be really good, especially from the perspective of an athlete has been injured. All of the things of identity crisis. Who am I now? Is the team going to forget about me? And Shalandra, you kind of touched on this, but I was very impressed with not allowing the team to move on without Trey. So even after the initial, visits at the house, you still kept that momentum up where it's like, don't forget, like, yes, let's keep coming back, or Trey will, be present. And I love that you spread that love around for his teammates. It wasn't focused solely on him, but like you said, when his other teammates experienced injury, you did the same for them. So I can commend you for that.
Yeah, each child is different. And one thing I know about, and Trey's an only child. And so his teammates are that's his brotherhood, right? And so his coaches are a big part of his family, his circle. And one thing we did, I think maybe like once he got off like the pain medicine and narcotic medicine and he can be more conscious, we had like maybe a week into week after the surgery, we had like just, I cooked some food. I had everyone come over, the coaches, the teammates, to kind of hang out with him, play video games, so that he didn't feel so disconnected from everyone because, he was already out of school for that week. He already couldn't play. He already knew that he wasn't going to play for months and months. Or miss the entire rest of the season or miss the entire season in general. And so, how do we still include him was a priority for me. And so, everyone did a really good job of making sure that they knew that he couldn't get around as well. So, on the weekends, they would come over, or during the games, he would be carted to the field and handed his clipboard and handed his headset and really be able to participate and feel like he was still a part of the team.
Oh, that makes me smile. I've
Yeah,
heard it
it
before, but
feels
it just,
so good. Yes, it really feels so
yeah.
good as a mom to kind of see that inclusion of him and see the intentionality of the inclusion for him.
Absolutely. And listeners, Trey is so in tuned and and emotionally intelligent that even when Shalandra is checking in with him, he will say like, "Yes, mom, like I'm good. My mental health is good."
Mhm.
So he is there. He is all checked in with his mental health. So I love that for young people because I know he is inspiring and motivating teammates and other young people around him to check in with their mental health as well.
Mhm.
But
It
I
was
want
at
to,
one point when I was like flipping all the kids like the little chart. Like I just want to make sure everybody's okay right now. And one thing he's also good at is telling me like, his boundaries. Like, listen, like this is triggering me. Like you're doing too much right now. Like, okay, I'll fall back some for this
and
week.
then then and then it's respected. I like that. Okay, but I want to get into your mental health because that's your baby. Like you said, your only child, your only baby. And to witness him go through this many injuries, because listeners, it was more than two, it was more than three. So to see him and then be that mom, that super mom for him to lean on and for you to carry everything and the appointments and the surgeries and then watching not only your baby be physically hurt, but then watching the mental component too and needing to get in there and support and do what you needed to do. How is your mental health going through that? And what would you say to other parents out there who are going through the same thing?
I would say put your support system in place also for yourself, right? Because you are pouring so much into your child during this time that it is taking away from you. And so you want to make sure that you have other people around you who are pouring into you, making sure you're okay. I have an amazing support system. I have an amazing therapist who I've had for many, many, many years. And so I will always be in therapy, doing the work that I do, but making sure that I kind of dial in more when there are things happening in my life. And so during those times, I made sure that, I went from just kind of maintenance to kind of like more frequent sessions with her to kind of unpack and compartmentalize some things that were affecting me when it came to kind of dealing with his injury. And, dealing with an injured child is not pretty, right? They are irritated, they are frustrated, they are angry, they are depressed, they're anxious. And so, really being able to kind of dig deep and pour into him. I'm blessed to be able to be a therapist and have a different skill set to combat some of those challenges, but I'm also a parent first. And so I recognize when I needed my own support. My friends, my sorors, my family, everybody I can call and vent to and kind of get some advice and feedback. Talking to other parents who kind of watched a child sustain an injury, doing a lot of research on like ACL recovery and timelines and outcomes that are positive after a student or a child has a significant injury like that, being able to kind of see that evidence that they can still be successful so that I can make sure that I am providing the right information to him. So a lot of psychoeducation for me there. But really taking care of myself, emphasizing my own self-care, taking the breaks that I need, um, pouring into myself when I need to, the meditation, the getting my body moving, the traveling, things like that. When I needed a break, I really make sure that I put those things in my life.
Hey, hey, listeners! If you're enjoying today's episode of Candid Conversations with Dr. Kelly, then take a second to like, share, and subscribe. Every listen helps us spread awareness, spark conversation, and educate communities about concussions, CTE, and overall brain health. Together, we're changing how the world thinks about the brain, one conversation at a time. So tap that subscribe button, like this episode, and share it with someone you care about. And let's keep the candid conversations going. Absolutely. Listeners, take heed. This is a professional telling you excellent steps for making sure that you are managing your mental health in the midst of being a busy individual, whether you are a parent, an athlete, a professional. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself, your mental health. I realized that we didn't mention Trey's injuries. I was saying physical injuries. If you're comfortable, will you say what those injuries were? One of them was ACL.
Yeah, well, a lot of them were ACL. So the very first one, ninth grade, he before football season even began, he tore his ACL, his meniscus, and there was one other, I think like a MCL, like sprain all in one. And so, for people who don't know, when you tear your ACL and meniscus is what it was, that means you're on crutches for at least like 6 weeks, right? Because they don't want you to have any weight bearing on the leg that the knee that is being repaired, so that the meniscus can properly heal and provide that cushion. So that one was probably the worst one for him because it was freshman year. You know, he was at a new school. It was going to be a new team he was joining, and he missed the entire freshman year of sports. So people don't even know that like my son really has only played like a total of probably 2 years of high school sports to be able to accomplish everything he has and obtain a football scholarship. And so and that required the surgery, of course. That was we were out for the entire season. That was probably the worst case of depression I'd ever seen in him. He was so depressed. We had a good therapist in place for him, helping him work through those identity issues. We got him involved in like a lot of mental health advocacy where he told his story about that being the worst time of his life and how he kind of got through that. Um, then he had like an MCL sprain. He was having like a standout year, sophomore year. I think he sprained his MCL, so he missed like the last 5 games. It didn't require surgery, but it did require him sitting out. Junior year, right before the state championship, another ACL tear, right? And so that was devastating. It was like literally like the game before the state championship game that his team had worked so hard for to reach. And here he is on the sideline again with the ACL tear. He didn't have a meniscus tear, so he was able to kind of have some weight bearing after surgery. But we took him on a surgery moon before he had that. We went to Mexico with his friends to kind of, just give him some peace of mind before the surgery. And we kind of made sure that everyone was involved. But what happened, we arrived to the gym. I was late because I had a session. And we arrived to the gym and everyone had on his name and number as a like what do you call those? Warm-up shirts. So one parent had kind of, planned this behind our back and everybody was like waiting on me to walk in. And when I walked in, like every kid said Quarles number 3. It was so beautiful. It was so inclusive. And this is what I mean about, really including a kid that's injured or an athlete in general in the process, in the team process. And so walking in and seeing that and seeing them all decked out in his name and number was so beautiful. So that was junior year. Senior year, another standout year. And we just absolutely didn't even think that injuries were like even in the works for him. We had another ACL injury.
And
So
this was around where he was
this was
selecting, looking at
this was when he
colleges.
was selecting colleges. So we had a lot of colleges who had expressed a lot of interest. I mean, Coastal Carolina, UNC Chapel Hill, all these, schools that he really thought he was going to really go to. Um, well, the interest stopped after that last injury. And so we are forever grateful to Elon because they never left his side. They knew his potential, they knew his work ethic, they stayed, present with him the entire time. And that's why we are where we are now.
So shout out
It's
to
been a
Elon.
it's been a journey for sure with him. And this, I think the surgery was earlier this year. Yeah, earlier this year is when he,
Hmm.
he had the last surgery. So now he's 22 pounds heavier. Like he's grown a few inches. He's doing really, really, really well. So we're really proud of him and how far he's come and his ability to overcome all this adversity.
Absolutely. And I am proud to be a part of that we that is proud of that young man. So I'm also
Yeah.
proud of you because you are super mom. You said it in the intro, but you really are.
That's my
So
favorite. It's my favorite job. It's my favorite job. But I know that he would not be where he is without the mental health support um, that was given to him and the space that was created for him. 95, and this is just me throwing out a number right now, but I know that there is a percentage of um, recovery that is really mental, right? The physical part, you do the physical therapy, you have the surgery, you have the procedures, you're going to heal. If you do the work there, you're going to heal. But in terms of truly getting back on the field or on the court, that's the mental part that will place an athlete where he needs to be. He or
absolutely.
she needs to be.
And that is across the board for any kind of recovery, especially for an athlete. But I think about patients that I see who have had a stroke or
Yeah,
dementia, Parkinson's. Motivation is a huge part of
absolutely.
even showing up to a session. Even your patients that you deal with, the fact that they can log in or make that drive to your office and come in and sit down, there's got to be a motivation to get better or to do the work because it is work on either
It is
end,
work.
especially physically rehabbing from a painful injury like that.
It's painful and it's hard work. And so you have to do a lot of cognitive reframing with any negative thoughts that may try to creep in. What if I never play again? Well, what if you play again and you exceed, all of your expectations? Like really reframing all those negative thoughts into something positive and challenging all those cognitive distortions that come because we're human beings and we have this injury that we can't see like the end the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to the 6 to 9 months later that I can get back on the field. Right now we're just kind of stuck in this moment and we can't really see the results that will come from the work that we put in.
Absolutely. So that is a nice bit about your favorite job. We're going to
Yeah.
slide on over and talk about your other job. You have worked with professional athletes. So
Mhm.
I correct me if I'm wrong, but it is retired athletes, injured, reserved, and active players.
Active, former and active players. Yeah.
Okay.
So I have been a part of the NFLPA, and that's National Football Leagues Player Association's clinician directory for about 5 years now. Um, and this program was started, I think, right during COVID to provide a network of specifically trained clinicians who had experience in working with athletes to provide, mental health services to them. And so I work with, athletes who have had to retire from injury, athletes who just didn't make the cut, right? The team did not decide to bring them back. Athletes who are now currently playing, who are playing right now in terms of kind of managing their mental health needs and so I've kind of seen a variety of issues from doing this type of work, working with athletes who have had to have their careers end because of injury is very difficult. for them to figure out what's next for me. And so we spend a lot of time kind of working on rebuilding their minds cognitively in terms of life after the careers ended and what can we tap into, what are our interests now, who are we now, putting things in place to make sure they're taking care of themselves mentally and emotionally, like what kind of self-care plan do we need to put in place for them. Um, Athletes who are experiencing mental health struggles because they have been cut from a team. That's a different beast in itself in terms of acceptance and commitment therapy and figuring out how to plan for my future and figuring out how not to take that personally as a form of an attack on my ability to be great. It just means I might not be a good fit for this particular team, or it might means that I need to figure out another career in in this field where I could be a coach one day, or I could be a speaker. A lot of my guys have gone into doing public speaking and really kind of sharing their experience and stories with other players. And then players that are currently playing is a lot of like sports psychology and how to minimize the anxiety they have in terms of performance on the field, how to get along with their teammates, how to communicate and advocate for themselves, with managers, with coaches, with ownership. And so it's a combination of things that I provide in this role, but it's one of my favorite things to do right now.
Fantastic. So, a lot of listeners are sports fans. And
Mhm.
so, can you give a general example or description of what a professional athlete can go through when it comes to just the pressures? We look at athletes and it's entertainment for us, and we cheer them on whatever the day is that they're playing.
Mhm.
But I've interviewed athletes on the podcast who have talked about the anxiety that you just mentioned and how
Mhm.
it could be a ritual for them where they vomit before a game and they're thinking that it's something else, but then they, retire from the league and they go into therapy and learn, oh my goodness, I've been suffering from anxiety this entire time. That's what was going on. Could you speak
Mhm.
to that? What are they experiencing?
Yeah, so I think that people need to understand that, professional athletes work for a business, right? This business is here to sell a product, to make money. And so there is a lot of pressure to make sure that I have the right employees, um, in my company, right? And so there's a lot of pressure to perform. And if the team isn't doing well, who do we start to look at? We're going to start looking at the coach, and then after the coach, we're going to start looking at the player's performance. And so the pressure to perform is there week after week if you're not one of those elite professional athletes who have been in the league for many years and you've signed that third contract. Like a lot of these athletes that I work with are still on their first contract. They're trying to get a guaranteed second contract. So performance is everything. The pressure that they put on themselves is everything. But the environment sometimes creates a space that doesn't feel safe. And by that I mean, let's say you had a difficult game last Sunday night. Um, Wednesday at practice, there could be a guy in coming in who plays the same position as you and is getting reps and warming up and potentially preparing to take your spot if you don't perform well again. And so that's where I say the psychology has to come in and the performance work because the pressure that we put on ourselves to perform before we even get on the field is going to carry out negatively in our performance if we're always in our head about things. And so I work with these guys a lot on kind of doing some guided meditations before we take the field, before practice, like doing some mindfulness work. I do a lot of different grounding activities to distract themselves so that they're not in these meetings worried about the next play or the next move, but worried about what am I doing right now? How's my body feeling in this moment? Um, what are my strengths? What are my personal goals? And not personalizing every single loss as their responsibility because it's a team sport. And the reality is that sometimes it's not the player, it's the person making the decisions and being able to accept that I did everything I could do and giving themselves some grace in that space. So a lot of the work with them comes in the form of really grounding themselves before they get on the field, before they get on the court, and really doing a lot of self-reflective work in terms of mindfulness so that they can allow themselves to be soothed in a space that provides so much pressure every single day. And this is just ongoing work that we do. And so a lot of my sessions, I'll start and say, like, I mean, how often are we being intentional every day about doing this grounding work? I really stress making sure that we're pouring into or we're practicing some type of grounding exercise every single day, even on the days that we feel great, even on the days that we had a good performance, so that the days that we don't feel so great or we don't perform so well, that we have this toolbox here that's full of resources that we can tap into and say, you know what, let me pull out one of these exercises and center myself in this moment.
Excellent. And I'm sure that is quite helpful because it sounds like what they deal with inside of their own heads, the pressure that they put on themselves outside of the giant corporation that they work for, that can be a lot.
It is. One of the things I always ask them is when there's a lot of self-doubt or a lot of cognitive distortions, self-defeating or self-loathing commentary is where's the evidence for all of this? Like, where's the evidence to support? If you can show me the evidence to support that you're not a good player, um, that this was your fault, that you are the one person who caused the whole game to go left. Like, where's the evidence to really show that to me? And if you can show me that evidence, I'll be quiet. But if you can't show me that evidence, then it's safe to say that this is something that you are creating for yourself, and we need to de-escalate some of this unhealthy thinking and get some more emotional regulation going on here. I work with them a lot on kind of the importance of having a PhD level of emotional intelligence. Something I like to joke around and say, but it's really important, is that when you have a high EQ, you tend to not let all this negative thinking take over and consume you. And so pouring into them so that we constantly are enhancing their EQ, so they can perform, as best as they can.
Very true with the high EQ.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, the challenging and uncomfortable topic with bridging our two worlds is the brain injury piece.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, former athletes, I am therapized, as I call myself. I know you, you in your space. And so we have had conversations about, and I ask other people because I want to be as responsible about this tough conversation as possible. But if you could share, because I'm sure there are listeners who wonder, like, how do I even start to have this conversation with my athlete, wherever
Hmm.
they may be? I think on different levels, the conversation can look different, especially with that professional level, with all the things that they have going on. It's tough to also be like, let me talk to you about concussion and brain injury and the possibility of CTE. That's very tough. But
Hmm.
for listeners who may have nieces or their own children or maybe even themselves who are in sports, what is one, not, well, maybe not one, but could you talk to a responsible way to bring up such a tough conversation?
So I'm a very like direct and assertive person. You know that about me. And so um, I think that one thing that I tell the athletes, whether they're, professional athletes, high school athletes, is that um, I want to know what kind of coach you have. I want to know what kind of coaches you have around you. And by that, I mean, when someone's injured, what is one of the first things that your coaches ask you, right? If the first thing that they ask you is when are you coming back or when are you cleared, that's a red flag for me, right? That tells me that the focus primarily is about getting this kid back on the field, opposed to, hey, how are you doing? What are your symptoms like this week? How's your recovery going? Um, how's your focus? How's your memory? Those are the kind of questions that I want to start to see more from coaches. And so when I talk to parents, when I talk to athletes about those things, I stress the fact that, like, when you are dealing with injuries and when you see someone injured, pay attention to how the coaching staff is communicating to you or to your teammate. When I talk to parents, I educate them all the time on making sure that this is not about being cleared. Like what cleared looks different for everyone. Cleared is just something that's in place to make sure that, legally people are protecting themselves in terms of putting athletes back on the field. But the things that you need to pay attention to are the things that are not being asked. And so, if a child is dealing with a concussion recovery, how's their sensitivity to light? How's their focus right now? Are you noticing any irritability or agitation that you haven't seen before? Has there been any changes in like their behavior in the home? Are they sleeping more? Are they sleeping less? How's their appetite? These are the kind of things that we have to make sure we're educating parents and people who are in positions to protect these children or these athletes on. And so really kind of starting a conversation with psychoeducation for me in general, in terms of what to look for, the kind of things that you should ask about your child is kind of where I like to start with that. Does that answer
Okay.
your question? I hope
Yeah,
so. Yeah.
absolutely. Yes. So I want to know, and I'm sure listeners out there want to know, what are some signs that parents, coaches, loved ones can keep an eye out for where their athlete may need or benefit from mental health services?
A big one again is that irritability and agitation or anger that seems like misplaced or is not in line with who this child's personality has always presented itself to be. And so, kind of noticing changes in mood is the first thing I want to pay attention to. Like sometimes, as parents, we say, your kid just has an attitude. Well, how long has he had this attitude? And is it normal for he or she to have an attitude about something like this? Have you seen this before? Um, have you talked to their teachers? Are you noticing like if their grades are dropping? Have you talked to the teacher to kind of see what they're noticing in the classroom? Um, the kids seem to be forgetting things or having, experiencing some brain fog that is just not normal. A lot of times parents will kind of chalk this up to a sign of disrespect, but a lot of times this is a sign of some kind of deeply rooted mental health issue, especially related to concussion. And when we see this with concussion all the time, all these things developing after a person experienced concussion, the brain fog, the irritability, the agitation, the anxiety, the depression, the sadness. And so really taking the time out after injury like concussion and paying attention and logging. I tell people all the time, kind of log, over the next week, can you log what you're seeing every day so we can kind of, gauge from week to week if it's increasing, decreasing, if we're noticing any changes there. But you have to tap in and pay attention. You can't just let someone say, okay, you had a concussion a week ago, doctors cleared you, you're good to go and not pay attention to everything else that's happening in their lives. All the other small changes that you're noticing. Just don't be so quick, especially parents, um, to chalk that up to like they're just being disrespectful right now, or they just have an attitude. They're being a teenager. I know the difference between my child being a teenager and something that's deeply wrong with my child, right? Your kid's more isolated or moody or withdrawn or always been a social kid and all of a sudden they want to stay in their room all the time. These are the kind of things you have to pay attention to as parents.
Absolutely. And I think that you do a phenomenal job at that, having that constant check in with Trey. So when you are considering an athlete who may benefit from working with a mental health professional,
Mhm,
what
mhm.
is a way that a parent, a coach, a friend, teammate, sibling could approach that conversation? Because that can be a sensitive thing. You don't want to just, walk up to someone and say, you need therapy. What is a
Mhm.
respectful way or a healthy way to approach that sensitive topic?
Yeah, hey, I'm noticing that something seems different from you. Something seems different about you. Or I'm noticing you don't seem like yourself right now. And I'm not trying to force you to do anything, but would you be open to just having one initial conversation with someone to kind of check in? Maybe it'd be easier to talk to someone who you're not close to. and who's not going to have a biased opinion about what's going on. Or maybe you need a space where you can be vulnerable. Maybe I might be the one that's triggering you, right? And so I want to provide a space for you that's safe for you to be able to talk about some things that you are experiencing. So kind of acknowledging that I'm noticing that something seems different in you. Um, Makes the conversation open for them to respond. They can say yes, well, I'm going through this, or no, everything's the same. I'm just, I had a bad day. But providing that space to say, like, I want to give you some power and making that decision. Would you mind just kind of sitting down with somebody one time and just kind of seeing how that goes? Because one thing about young people, especially teenagers, you can't force them into anything. And so you want to make the space as relatable as possible. You want to find someone who kind of looks like them, who they can connect to on that level. We make sure that we found someone that Trey could really connect to, who was a young Black therapist and a former athlete, a former football player. So all these things were in
And a
place.
male.
And a male, we were identifying someone for him. But no, you can't go to someone and say, you need to go to therapy. You need to go to therapy. But hey, I'm noticing some things are different. And this is what I'm noticing A, B, C, and D. Um, can you speak to some of these things? Maybe I'm not seeing it right. I just want to make sure, but I do care about you and your well-being, and mental health is so important. So if you could just agree to just have one sit-down session with someone, just to kind of make sure that we're all on the same page about what we're experiencing here. But also, if you are experiencing something and you don't want to talk to us about it, we want to have a safe space for you to be able to do so. And I would encourage coaches to do the same thing and say, one thing about Trey's coach, he would reach out to me and say, hey, such and such is feel like he's having a hard time. Do you mind, talking to them? Do you mind, like, or do you mind coming in? I recently went in and did like a whole session with the entire team, football team, without the coaches present, where we could really sit down and talk about um, the transitions from, new players coming in and the pressures that, people were feeling to perform, the mistakes that were being made, not getting along with each other, and really kind of bonding and strengthening the brotherhood there. So, not telling them that they need therapy, but just engaging them in a conversation about, hey, I'm identifying this, or it seems like you might be experiencing something. Would you be open to talking to someone about that?
Excellent. So there you go, listeners. There are a few examples of what you can say in a healthy and responsible way to hopefully get the best outcome to where your athlete or loved one would be considered to an initial conversation. That's always good, where you're not trying to pressure them, where like, let's get you on a regimen, but
Mhm.
one session, a conversation, let's see how it goes. So thank you for sharing that.
And also with young people, because we have so many platforms and databases now, providers to say like, hey, let's search together and see if we could find somebody that you connect to. A lot of the young people that I work with have found me because the young people, did the search themselves. Well, I picked her. I like what she had to say on her profile and things like that. So getting them in the process and making them feel like they have a voice and a choice also is really important.
I like that. Absolutely. I think I would have felt much more comfortable. I think young people feel much more comfortable when it's done in that way. So thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that
when
with
I feel like I
listeners.
chose, like when I feel like I had something to say about the person that I am going to just spill out my guts to, right?
Yeah, it's not like you're being put in it. You get to
Yeah.
choose who you would like to have this experience with, which is empowering.
Absolutely. I ask young people all the time, like, do you want to be here or did your parents make you come? Right? If they want to be here, great. Well, I'm really glad that you decided to really make this a priority. If they didn't, the parents forced them to come. I say, well, let's just give it, let's you and I agree to 3 sessions and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. You can kind of be doing your assessment on me to make sure that this is going to be a good space for you to come to every week. Um, Mom's not going to let up right now, so at least let's just you and I try to make this a very comfortable experience. But let's agree to at least 3 sessions. I'll talk to mom after the third session and let her know what my thoughts are, because this is not going to work if you don't want to be here. That's typically my go-to line with the kids who are like, my mom made me come in here.
I
Okay,
love the
well,
empowering aspect of it, though. You
yeah,
still give the power to
yes.
the client and the athlete, the child, and you say, or I should say young person, I don't know how old they
Young
are,
person.
but you
Mm-hmm.
say you can also assess me. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not just like, again, they're being put in and they're under a microscope. They
Yeah.
have a role in being able to check you out as well. I love that.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to speak to, I've been trying to continue to raise awareness that while mental health and cognitive health are not the same, they absolutely are related. So, listeners, if you heard Shalandra a little earlier in the episode, she was describing how if you're noticing signs in an athlete where they've had a concussion and they're becoming more moody or withdrawn, depressed, those are the things that tie into the mental health
Yep.
component. And so they absolutely are related. And if you go back and listen to this episode, start listening for those cues and those connections because they absolutely are there. I'm inviting you to connect with me and be part of the Brain Talk movement. It's super simple. Just visit braintalkfoundation.org and subscribe to our newsletter to become one of my brain buddies. You'll get updates on upcoming Brain Talk days, find out when I'll be speaking in a city near you, and get insights on what's happening in the world of brain health and concussion awareness. Join our community of changemakers because together we can make a difference. Visit braintalkfoundation.org and become a brain buddy today. I want to get to the candid questionnaire. I mean, you and I, we are so close. I could talk to you all day about this stuff, and we both nerd out on it, but we both have
Nerd
things
out
to
on
do.
it. Yes.
Yes, we both have things to do, so I will get to the candid questionnaire. But before I do that, can you tell listeners how they can find you on the socials or email, whatever you'd like to share, or any projects that you have coming up that you want to share?
Yes, so my website is www.quarlescounseling.com. Instagram is Quarles Counseling. And I am someone who is not a big fan of social media when it comes to my work. Um, there's a struggle that I'm working through in terms of being more present on social media. Because I find, the work that I do is very private and very intimate, very vulnerable work. And so I'm trying to find a good fit for me in terms of kind of exposing myself more on social media. But I do have an Instagram social media page, and my website is always there. Contact information, excuse me, is Shalandra at quarlescounseling.com. 980-395-5473. I'm always open to have conversations about mental health. I'm always open to work with young people. A lot of the advocacy I've been doing in the last couple of years with young folks is just because I want to do it. And so I've started these kind of locker room conversations with teams where I come in and provide a 2-hour session to build resilience, and focus on mental health for the entire team. Kick the coaches out. We just kind of get down and dirty in there about what's really going on behind the scenes, off the field. And I've been having a really, really good time doing that. And it's been producing a lot of positive results. I think after some sessions I've done, the teams kind of are winning games again. And so kind of reestablishing the brotherhood has been really, really positive. And so I've been enjoying doing that too.
So,
So
listeners, if
if
you
you
are
want to bring me in for
interested,
your team, please do.
I was just going to
It's a
say,
good
if you are
time.
interested, please make sure that you reach out to Shalandra. We will have her information in the show notes. So
Mhm.
let's get to the candid questionnaire. What is one word your friends would use to describe you?
Can I say that on here? I'm not going to say that. Bossy.
See, I was just going to take off the Y. I was just going to say boss. That's how I envision you. But yes, you are bossy too. If you go on a
Bossy.
trip with Shalandra, just have your affairs, have everything lined up, okay? You better be on it. She
Type,
can be
type A
bossy.
personality over here for sure.
Yes, we love type
I
A's.
like order. I like order and structure. Um,
That
yeah,
that is also the Virgo, I think.
that is definitely the Virgo for
Yes.
sure. But everyone needs a Virgo in their lives, and everyone needs a person like this in their lives to kind of keep things going. We keep things going, we keep things in order.
I am grateful for the Virgos in my life. I'm especially grateful for you. You definitely keep things in order. So I thank you for that.
Yes. Yes.
Number two, if you could instantly master any sport or physical skill, what would it be and why?
Sport or physical skill? I want to do an Ironman. Like, I really, really do. So ever since I did the triathlon 2018 and I saw what my body could really do, because we started training for that, I was like, I'm not gonna survive this. Like, this is impossible. Like, I'm not gonna be able to bike, swim, and run all in one day. And to be able to accomplish that and to see what the body could do once you train the mind, because I really had to like mentally train myself. Into kind of getting through some of the workouts there. I'm like, you know what? I want to do an Ironman before I retire. I want to do that, and so that's something that's definitely on my bucket list.
Well, I will come out and support. You know me. I was
You
gonna
want to
do
do it with
the
me?
No, no. I would, I didn't want to do the triathlon because all I wanted was the outfit. The outfit was really cute,
Super
but
cute.
I
It's super
know, but
cute.
they said I had to, get dirty and do all the things to get it. So
It
I was
was
like,
it was a lot, but I
just
mean it's such
support
an
y'all.
accomplishment. So like Iron Man sounds really cool. And I mean I'm definitely the like outgoing type of woman and
Biker,
jumping off of cliffs and all
true.
good stuff. So
Zip lining.
zip lining, snorkeling, and we still have to go scuba diving though, but
Yes,
yeah.
yes. This is my adventurous LS, so she will
Yeah.
do these things with me.
Absolutely, absolutely. I like to stay busy.
Absolutely. So, number three, what's one activity or hobby you find most relaxing or beneficial for your brain?
Reading.
Ooh, I like that. It doesn't exhaust you, it relaxes you.
No, no, it doesn't. It relaxes me.
I
So,
like that.
mhm.
Okay. See, I'm like multitasking over here, so I've got to like audible. I've got to
I
listen
can't,
into
so
it.
I can't do Audible. I've tried it, but the narrators just really like, ugh, I just can't do it. Like it's just not the voice that I hear in my head when I'm like, you hear a voice that's reading a story, like when you're reading.
Yes.
So the voices that they have narrating some of the books are just like, this is not what I imagined this voice to sound like, and it just turns me off. So, and I
Like
like
it
the
messes
smell
up
of
my
the
imagination.
paper. I like the smell of the paper, and I like to try to find a bookstore when I travel. Remember, we went to Paris and we found that bookstore, and I was just like so excited, like,
Yes.
oh my gosh,
And
like
they
I
had
gotta get
like,
something.
I know, but they had like good like vintage books. It
It
wasn't
was
like a Barnes and Noble. It
yes,
was
it was
like a,
so cool. Like, and old books
yes.
just have this smell, like that's just I just
I
love it.
love the smell and I love if there's like writing in it. Like how like
Yes,
us back in the day when we
like
had
notes.
textbooks, you could
Hmm,
open up the
hmm.
book and see who had your book the year
Yes,
before.
yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
also so you like the turning pages too. That means that you're not on the Kindle or on the iPad swiping.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a Kindle, but I'm just old school. Like I just like to have my books.
Keep the
So
books. Yeah.
I've tried a few times to do the Audible thing, thinking like I could do it in the car on the way to the office, but I just can't tap into it. But yes, reading is very relaxing for me. So I've always been a geek in that capacity. I'm in a book club now with Shirley, our line sister. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right. Reading, relaxing the brain. I like it. All right,
Mhm.
number four. What's the weirdest or most unexpected item in your bag or car right now?
Weird or unexpected item in my. So this is so funny. My work bag is right here. I always travel with a portable heater. Like, I don't know if is that what you mean, but like I'm not going
Yes.
anywhere. Like I don't know who travels with a portable heater, but I travel with a portable heater. Like
Where does it go?
it's in my work bag. I plug it in. If I'm cold, I don't want to sit up here and deal with being cold in any capacity. And so I've learned that like a lot of spaces, and I wear a lot of hats. I'm in different office spaces, and so I'm not going to deal with being cold. So my portable heater is always with me in my,
Okay.
and this is my
Well,
work.
now you inspire me. You always inspire me. But now I might have to get a heater too because I have the heated jacket. And so
Yes.
I'll put that on instead of carrying
Yes.
the heater. But I mean, there's nothing
Yes.
wrong with carrying the heater
So this is, I mean, you have to plug this one in. So it doesn't work without, being plugged
an
into
outlet.
an outlet. But it helps me like just that, space that I'm just like, oh my God, I have to present and I'm freezing before the presentation. Need to warm up a little bit. This is where it is. It's always in my work bag.
You always have something that's so unconventionally convenient. And I'm like, and
Oh,
I know, but it's
you
like,
guys,
and then
conference rooms are freezing sometimes. I mean,
you're
you can
right.
be on
But
the
it's like,
podium and I can
why
just have it
not?
plugged in behind me and nobody will know. It's small and compact. It's powerful.
And then
Listen,
it's just like, why not? You're
why not?
allowed. You can carry these things around for
Yes,
your own comforts.
yes,
See, the
yes. I'm
software
not going to
era
shut
just,
the building down because it's not taking up too much of the
yeah,
power source. So,
taking
but
care of yourself.
yes, my portable heater is there.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So I need the link and I need to go ahead and
Yes,
put
I
that in
will
my
send it to
bag as
you.
well. Thank you.
Yes.
And lastly, what's your go-to guilty pleasure TV show, movie, or song?
Oh gosh. Any serial killer documentary, like they're so intriguing to me. I
Really?
mean, they are, and even if I've already seen a documentary on like Jeffrey Dahmer, right? We'll use Jeffrey Dahmer. They keep making different ones, and so I find myself like even if I've seen four of them, I'm gonna watch number five because I'm just so intrigued by you know just the whole psychology of these type of crimes. I mean, it's very as a therapist for me, it's just to see some of the foundation of some of these serial killers and how they develop and the signs and the red flags that people miss every single day. A lot of these parents, have known that their children, there was something that wasn't quite right, and they did not take the next step into kind of researching it. Whereas, like, I'm the kind of mom, like, okay, what's going on? Why is this door closed so much? Why is this room locked so much? Like, what's happening? We don't lock doors around, things like that. And so for me, it's always like baffling to see certain components of the red flags being missed and people just accepting some of these things as normal. It's not normal at all. But I'm very intrigued and I do enjoy watching serial killer documentaries.
That's specifically. Well, I love anything true crime, but
Hmm.
I'm shocked because if I watch something on like concussion or athletes or something that'll get me into the like
Hmm.
idea space, then I'm like I want to get up and go and have conversations and start. So
Hmm.
I'm not
Hmm.
um I've got to be in the mood to do that. But like true crime, I can do that anytime. So when you
Yeah.
are watching it, do you get into that mindset of like analyzing and like, because
I do, especially the parts where like the psychiatrist or the psychologist is kind of doing the interview with the person and kind of just seeing how they are hearing some of the most grotesque like information and disclosure of all of this and just kind of seeing how they are able to stay composed um, to stay rational enough to complete the assessment and to provide a sound diagnosis afterwards for me is very intriguing because I find myself, saying, if that was me, how would I be able to sit there and receive, the information that is coming from this individual in front of me? Um, and remember all of my trainings and all of my teachings and provide an accurate and clear clinical impression and diagnosis. Like I think it's just really profound how some of them are able to kind of compartmentalize and be able to not use bias in creating these diagnoses for these individuals.
well, as much as
It's a
I
lot of
love true
strength.
crime, yeah, now I think that we should have one of our dinner dates. We should like sit down and like watch some true crime
Yes,
and on serial
yes,
killers because I would love to hear that perspective. That intrigues me as well. But I know we could talk all day and you still have
yes,
patients that you need to see.
I
So we're gonna
do.
wrap this up. Thank you
Bye.
so much for finally getting on the podcast and sharing all of your knowledge and wisdom with our listeners. Thank you so much. And we will talk soon.
All right, I enjoyed you.
Thank you for tuning in to Candid Conversations with Dr. Kelly.
I hope today's discussion left you inspired, informed, and ready to take on your next challenge with a clearer mind. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep striving for a healthier mind and a happier life. I'm Dr. Kelly, and this has been another Candid Conversation.